Well, good morning, everybody. I want to introduce one more Trender panelist today. Sophie joins us. She was a little bit stuck in the commute problem that everybody has to experience from time to time here in New York. So, Sophie, just a couple of words about yourself so that the audience knows who you are as a viewer.
Sure. Okay, so hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sophie, as Kurt mentioned. I'm 28 years old. I live in Hoboken. I'm a part of the millennial generation, and so I'm a cord cutter myself. And I've been working in tech PR for about 4 years.
Thanks, Sophie. Okay, so now let's look at the panel here, and we'll start with William. William, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and Preview Channel?
Hi, I'm William Sager, and the Preview Channel is a 24-hour channel that features movie trailers and video game trailers, behind the scenes, and star and director interviews from Hollywood. It's all produced by Hollywood, and we have some of the, actually all of the box office stars and directors, and a lot of short-form programming for sure.
Thanks, William. Piper?
Hi, I'm Piper Rosenshine. I work at A&E Networks, where I am responsible for our subscription video business. So I touch everything related to those products, from content strategy to product roadmap, working with our distribution partners, acquisition, retention marketing, and overall forecasting the business and identifying future growth opportunities.
Hi, good morning. Eric Trussler with Equifax. Maybe wondering what Equifax is here doing at an OTT conference. Couldn't be more excited to be here. So we help companies, platforms with their marketing data and authenticated onboarding. So we actually know who the consumer is that's watching and help you all connect data off platform. Work with business development for all the mobile carriers, the pay TV providers, and the broadband providers.
Hi, good morning. My name is Efe Akbulut. I am heading the BritBox Analytics team. BritBox is a streaming service by BBC and ITV in the United States and Canada. And my role is helping my team to analyze the data with my engineering background and creating data-driven insights for marketing and business teams.
Hi, I'm Marty Roberts. I'm the CEO of Wicket Labs. We're essentially the big data department for media companies. So we help them aggregate data from all the different systems they're using, their marketing system, their subscriber system, their site and app analytics, and a lot from the operational systems. We pull all that data together and harmonize it, and then we do a couple things with it. We provide insights about their business so they can make better decisions about their marketing, about their product decisions, et cetera. We actually run machine learning against that data so that we can predict who is going to leave a subscription video service. We turn it on its head, though. We call it the Customer Happiness Index. So we tell you how happy every subscriber is. We give them a cheese score. And then the third thing we do is we inject that data back into those existing systems. So you plug that data right back into your marketing system so you can go do an email campaign or a notification or a better acquisition campaign. So really kind of close the loop with that data set.
Well, thanks. Thank you all. Those great introductions. So now I'm going to ask a few questions. So this is all about understanding the viewer, right? And so clearly that's like everybody says, oh, if you understand the viewer, you make the content for them, it's great. But it's a huge big data problem. But before we get into all the deep analytics and everything else, I want to start with a simple question. If you're going to start a service, and some of you have, so that's wonderful, what kind of old school knowledge gathering do you do to figure out what kind of content you should launch with before you can, put in all your fancy analytics and things? And Piper, maybe you can talk to that?
Sure. So I actually joined A&E after our 2 current products were launched, so I can't speak as much to what was done in the past, but in terms of how we would approach any new products, I think we would first start looking at our content and understanding what content we could make available to subscribers, looking and seeing how it performed in the past in our linear networks, and then also talking to current customers and asking them, would they be interested in this content? What else might they want? Trying to do some A/B tests. So I think for us, it would be a combination of the knowledge we already have from our core business and then marrying that with user feedback and trying to come up with the best product based on all of the data that we have.
William, maybe you could add to what you did there for Preview Channel?
With the Preview Channel, we matched what was lacking or what was not on television with the demos that were kind of hot, the millennial demos. So I took a look at exactly what was on television and what was missing. And the two elements that were missing were video games and movie trailers. And most people here in this room and the rest of the country know what movie trailers are, and they know what video game trailers are, and they certainly know what box office movie stars are and directors. So it was easy to extrapolate and take a guess that the same audiences that like movies were going to like video games, and these were just non-existent on television up until now.
So just to understand, William, so the Preview Channel it's an over-the-top service. It runs as a linear channel, and the consumer is just served with trailers for video games and movies on a regular basis.
Right. There's a linear component of it which runs 24/7 that pulls from a bucket of a lot of assets, and then there's a VOD component that breaks them up into action adventure, horror, science fiction, documentary, animation, and family. And you can go through. We're available on all the systems and all the apps that you can find. So you can go through all those categories, watch whatever trailer you want, or you can sit down and turn the TV on, run 35 million smart TVs through Xumo, and we'll be on another 25 million on Samsung in about 2 weeks. So you can sit down and pull that up and just do nothing but watch as much television as you want.
So, thank you, William. The next question I have is around behavioral analytics and how you start to collect behavioral analytics, and whether or not you launch with that kind of, analytics capability, or is that something that you ease into over time, because it can be very complicated. Yeah. So, jump ball, Marty.
Sure. So, we would absolutely recommend, and there's a whole number of best practices around, capturing the actions of consumers, of your customers right from day one, and really starting to establish that as a baseline. So you can start to see trends over time about what's healthy behavior, what's not. Subscription or any registration-based video service has an advantage in that we can track users between sessions, multi-device usage, things like that. Those trends you can pick up very early, and it doesn't take very long. Even a couple hundred views on any given video or a couple thousand users that start to use the service, where you start to see some emerging patterns about what's going to be good, healthy users and those that probably aren't going to be long-term customers of your particular service. So you can really focus in on the healthiest, the best customers you have, and then you can start to replicate your acquisition of customers like that going forward. So you add healthy customers or healthy subscribers on top of healthy subscribers. So.
F.A., maybe you can add something to this around the BritBox launch and the kinds of stats that you went into. So you are an offshoot of BBC, so you already had experience with these things, but how did you launch, and did you have like a full behavioral analytics suite at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm so agree. From the first day, we need to save all the data as a backup so we can follow the customer behaviors. And for BritBox, maybe we were a little lucky because we are by BBC and ITV, and BBC was already in the US. And before launching the product, we make customer surveys for the already BBC fans. But from the customer behavior, we didn't just look the number of the BBC fans and we say like, oh, we have enough market size. We go one more step and then we look how long they watch, and do they watch more, or are they looking for the contents currently not available in the US? So BritBox is coming from all these ideas. There were potential market size looking for even like the all British content, and so we could make it available.
Okay. Eric, a question for you. You alluded to this at the beginning. What's Equifax doing up here? So I'd like to maybe understand a bit about Equifax's role and the kinds of things that you're providing into this market space so that sort of everybody can understand that a little bit better.
You bet. I think it starts with authenticated identity. So as you talk about launching a service, it's important to understand who that subscriber truly is, so that as you go out and do acquisition marketing, retention work, there's an intimacy, a depth of knowledge. And part of what Equifax brings to bear is an ability to quite simply, actually with 9 digits, get to the authenticated identity that then kind of links back and across the data sets, both on platform and off platform. In addition, we bring forward, especially as we look at the emerging trends with AVOD. Of course, that's where a lot of the money is, right? These advertisers, agencies are seeking the audiences that you all have cultivated. But they need to know about those audiences in the terms that they understand. Part of those are the data around the financial metrics of the individuals in the households. So that's part of what we bring to bear, that authenticated identity linked across on and off platform, and then the financial metrics that help define the consumer and the household.
Okay, interesting. So I'm going to turn here to the Trender panel for a minute, and I'm going to ask Sophie a question. So you hear the folks over here talking about how they want to measure what you're doing, your behavior. Tell me how you feel about that. Is it a good thing when you see ads that make sense for you, or they're serving up content for you, or how do you feel?
So I personally feel that sometimes whatever's coming up in my streaming media platform does not necessarily cater to what I want to see in that moment, or maybe just in that time. It could be that I've been watching it, so why do I want to continue watching it? Maybe I have a different kind of feeling, or I'm just in a different mood to watch something not so funny. Maybe I want a drama. So I think that they don't have a good enough handle on me, like my preferences and what I want in that moment. So I think they have a general sense, but not one that's going to impact me in that moment.
Okay, one follow-up question, and this one I'll give to Vlad. So if you're watching your video channel, it could be any subscription service, and they offer you the ability to, let's link to your Facebook account, or let's link to your whatever social media account, so we can learn more about you and understand better what we can recommend to you and what kind of ads could I put in front of you. What are you thinking? Is that good?
Absolutely not.
No.
No, I would avoid having my, anything personal about me, linked to each other.
Okay. Urza, how do you feel about that?
Whenever I sign up for things, I usually refuse to link it up through my social media, but I don't think it's a bad idea. Recently I've been watching a lot of music documentaries, and I saw one on Sam Cooke, that was on Netflix, and there was a Wu-Tang on Showtime. And then on my Instagram, I found out that there was a Teddy Pendergrass one on Showtime, which I watched the other night. And I didn't know about that. I had not read any reviews, so I thought that was kind of nice.
Okay.
So it's kind of I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I wouldn't mind being introduced to something new.
So you like the benefit of the service knowing you and sort of curating content for you based on what it knows.
Right.
But we're a little bit nervous about giving
Still
all
a
that
little
away.
reluctant, yeah.
Okay. So I think you guys are all kind of in the same age group. I was kind of wondering maybe if I had somebody. But Sophie, how do you feel about that?
I was going to say, so when you sign up for a social media platform, you're signing your life away in a way. I mean, there's fine print that you're not reading, but this information about you is pretty available. I mean, even if you set your profile to private, Facebook, for example, is the biggest, what do we call it, data garden, right? They have the most amount of data on individuals of any kind of company, or website out there. So, for me, I personally am already I'm deciding to put my information out there, and it's already on the web. So, I would find it actually more helpful if something that I've shared or something that someone shared with me is kind of being linked into my, what's coming up in my video services.
So if the service could cut the amount of time you spend looking
Absolutely.
for
If
content.
if I decide I'm putting it out there,
Yeah.
I made the decision,
Okay.
then why not, why shouldn't a Netflix be able to serve me something that
Interesting.
makes
That's
sense?
an interesting mix of opinions, and that's great, because I think that's where we all are right now, trying to figure that one out. Turning back to the panel. Let's see. What kind of data do you collect from your service to understand your viewers? If I was to say, is it the titles they watch? Is it, like, what's good data? What have you found that works well for you? How many times they watch, Marty?
Yeah, so so the first thing I would say is you don't have to collect any personally identifiable information. So, and actually GDPR as a now basically a global standard has actually been a great thing. It forces everybody into an equal playing field where we're immediately encrypting any data that looks, even your location or your IP address and things like that. But once we have that data, there's all of it actually plays a role in determining how good your service is going to be in terms of how are they coming in, how are they paying for your particular service has a big indicator on whether they're going to churn based on a credit card default or they're going to be a long-term subscriber based on your credit card. So that's an interesting data point to know. In terms of consumption, of course, you want to look at the titles they're watching and the relationships between those titles, but also elevate that up to look at the genres they're watching or the series or the season, and you can really find a lot of information. And again, relationships between different groups of users. In terms of acquiring new customers, you can use the most successful campaigns right now are the Facebook and Google lookalike campaigns, where you can say, here's a group of really good users that we have as part of our service today. Find other people on the platform that look like this. Now, how Facebook and Google do that, one might argue is a little creepy, but fine. They go and advertise just to those particular people, and it always converts at a really great rate. In fact, we just had a campaign that a customer ran, and it was their customer acquisition cost was 24% lower than they'd ever run before as they hit their target rates based on using a great reference set of current customers. And so you can really start to use this data to say, again, I've got great customers, and then pile that on. So what we would argue is more data is better because it's going to inform your acquisition strategy, it's going to inform your engagement strategy, and it's going to inform your retention strategy over time. And ultimately, that drives to a better audience lifetime value for your business.
Well, thank you very much. That's very informative. Here's a question for the folks who have churned through the data. All right, you get all this data. There's a massive mountain of data. And have you ever seen or met an aha moment where you said, wow, I didn't think that was going to happen. I didn't think that's the way they behaved, right? Can you give me an example? F.A., you're nodding your head. Clearly you've got something there.
Because I definitely had this moment like, aha, wow, I didn't see that before. Like, it was about, we are 2 years old company, we are really new, and we are still trying to figure out, like, what's the best market in the United States, because the United States is a big country and the population is really high level. And so based on the traditional system, like the rating system, they collect a sample data, and then the sample data is just like around 40,000 households for all the United States, and they're trying to come up with a rating system. And this is, when we follow that traditional way, you always see New York, LA, the high crowded city is always your best market because the sample data includes more people from these crowded places. Mm-hmm. And in this situation, we saw that, okay, top 5 city is like New York, LA, and then we decide to look different way. We calculate average streaming minutes by each customer, and we create a heat map. When we create this heat map, it was really vice versa. Like the middle American regions was like burning, like they're watching 2 times longer than an average person in New York. So, I mean, before that, we were telling, oh, we are good in the big cities. Yes, this is still true. We have so many subscribers in big cities, but also our real fans in the middle American regions. And it was really our like aha point, because we saw that, yes, we are a British content platform, but we have a taste for each different side of the United States, even in the middle side.
So it was a combination of collecting a massive amount of data,
Definitely.
and then being able to look at it, sort of visualizing it, to understand.
Yes, and
What-
creating a heat map.
Okay, that's very interesting. Piper, have you had any sort of aha moments with some of the things that you're doing and the data that you've been collecting?
We do, and I think my aha moment actually came from survey data as opposed to behavioral data. So in our product, we have both a monthly and annual plan, and we thought that in our registration flow it was very clear and that we did a great job of explaining both options. And then via survey feedback, we came to realize that, to me, a shocking number of our subscribers didn't realize that we had an annual option. And so it made us really take a closer look at the registration flow, make some changes, do some testing, and again, made us realize that we look at the product every day, and it's clear to us, but when we asked users, they weren't understanding the way we were explaining the product, and it was an aha moment for me in terms of, sometimes what you see in the in data itself is helpful, but actually asking people and getting feedback from your users is in some cases even more informative.
Okay, great. Anything?
I'd say we've come across 2 aha moments recently. One was that 31% of all churn is involuntary churn. These are credit card failures on one reason or the other. That seems solvable. If a third of your churn is because the payment mechanism somehow breaks down, well, there's features to remind people, and there's credit card retry systems, and there's all kinds of mechanisms. There are product-based approaches to solve that particular problem, and that seems eminently solvable. The second thing we found which was really interesting as a benchmark was that people that primarily watch on iOS and Android churn at twice the rate as those that watch on Apple TV or Roku. In fact, for some of our customers, we're saying, hey, maybe send them a coupon for a Roku box, because the lifetime value is actually going to just dwarf the actual cost of that particular box based on the 10-year that they subscribe to that service. So anytime we see a highly mobile-based audience, we're immediately suspect, and our churn model actually kind of goes into overdrive in terms of predicting high-risk customers, because they just don't stick with these subscription services for very long.
Can I add also about something for the churn rate? And we talk about the data now, all the quantitative side. Also, based on my experience, we saw that our churn rate is really low, but again, churn is churn. You need to be careful. And my suggestion is also looking to qualitative way too, and then making a survey and listen to people what they leave, because we saw that, as you tell, as a credit card problem, also sometimes people left your left your product to use the same product from different platform. They explain, we look almost more than half of the churns, they just explain they still gonna keep using the product, but they're gonna prefer a different platform to access the same product.
Interesting. So that leads me to an interesting question. Does churn in our OTT model, does churn mean the same thing? Does it have the same connotation as in the pay TV, cable TV type of model? Is it, because I know it's a big black mark signal in the cable industry, of course, but OTT might be different. Eric, would you like to answer?
Sure. I think the more visceral way to talk about churn is that you've been fired.
You've been fired.
Right, because that's what's happened. And certainly in the pay TV world, that's pretty permanent. And at times in the OTT space, it's more like the Friends episode where they're on a break. There's just this moment where they're on a break and though you can go try other things. But that's a dangerous proposition to lull yourself into that line of thinking, because as we've already talked about, there might be a ceiling of 4 or 5 providers that a consumer will look at. Competition, there's really a war for the consumer. And so I think while the connotation may feel a little different at times in this space, I think that's a dangerous approach. And I think keeping in mind, you've been fired, puts your minds right on making sure the value is there and that the marketing outreach is proper.
Is it possible that rather than being fired in OTT, you're just getting laid off? They might bring you back, like.
Well, that's that notion of, are we on a break? Is this that? I love that term, porpoising. Are we in, then we're out, and then.
That's actually a very good description.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
But and that may be true. There may be some of that dynamic, but this space is maturing very, very quickly, and how many times do you get to have that first impression? And if they've left you, you've got to bring them back. It's expensive to bring them back. You've got to remarket. The content's got to be on target. So yeah, there may be a different connotation. I think the safer way, though, is to think about how important that relationship is to maintain and nurture and grow and maintain.
So it's all about understanding the viewer. Right?
There you go.
I'm going to open it up for questions now. We've got about 8 minutes. And any questions, please feel free to ask my left side or my right side. We've got one towards the back. If we don't have a lot of questions, I have about a dozen more I could go through. Yeah.
Yeah, just quickly, what is the churn numbers for OTT? We had Andrew tell us it's about 8% now for cable and satellite. What is it currently for OTT?
Yeah, we're benchmarking churn across the industry at about 9%, actually, with a standard deviation of 6 points. So we see services as low as 3 and 4% churn. We see services as high as 15% churn. Occasionally you run higher than that. But yeah, that's kind of the norm that we see as a benchmark across the industry. We finally just got to, we're a small company, we finally got to a point where we're indexing millions of audience members, and so we could look across multiple subscription video services and find. So churn's about 9%. So if you're over or under that, if you're under that, you're doing great stuff, keep doing it. If you're over that, there's all kinds of best practices that can be employed to really help maintain that audience over time. So.
And since I still have the mic for the millennials, I guess.
Trenders, they're trenders.
Trenders, all right.
Those are the millennial trenders, I'll give you that.
All right. How many of you have churned already from one subscription service on demand? Okay. Thank you.
And did you go back?
That's better than 9.
We got a question down here. Question. Whoever's closest to the mic, we'll get to
Right
you.
here. This is Pete Schlayla from Viacom. I love the Friends reference, by the way. Rachel and Ross, always good. I have a question for each panel, but I'll just start with the expert panel. You mentioned GDPR. When you think about how it has put American companies out of business in Europe, it's silenced a lot of our narrative from journalism, like Chicago Tribune is now dark across the pond. And now you've got CCPA leading the way for policy on January 1. I would love to know your thoughts on where we're all going to sit with data matching and information from the trenders once potentially the policy becomes California across the United States. Trenders, any answer to that?
Well, what I'd say is that, so a couple things. Number one is, like a lot of regulation that was put out there to protect consumers, it had the maybe inadvertent consequence that it absolutely entrenched the bigger players in the market space. So it's very easy for Facebook or Google to comply with these particular rules because they have direct relationships with consumers. It is absolutely undercutting ad networks and other monetization mechanisms that are out there because they are secondary or third, or tertiary, basically, data collectors in that particular process, or the legal term, they're data processors, and so they don't necessarily have that permission, so it cuts them out of that economic stream. So of course, for any type of regulation that you're looking at, the unintended consequences ripple through the environment. And California's new approach to it will absolutely have similar benefits from that. That being said, the advantage on any type of registration-based service, whether it's subscription or some other, become a fan, things like that, now you're opting in as a consumer to a set of terms that changes your relationship relative to that company. And so you can collect more data. Again, you don't have to collect personally identifiable data at all, and there's lots of ways to hide and encrypt that data so it's never exposed ever again, which is right and should be the right thing. But every company that's in the space just looks at these rules and just says, how are we going to tweak our model? And the bigger players naturally win. So smaller players definitely suffer on regulations like that.
We've got a question over here. We got a question over here, and there's another one in front. Before that question, I do want to ask one question of my own for William. William, so you have a linear stream there, right? And so a lot of the analytics that I think people are picking up is what title they watch in a VOD situation, that kind of thing. But maybe you can illuminate a little bit on what you do for collecting of data with a linear stream, where they're not directly, picking what they want to watch.
Well, one of the aha and pet projects we have is, and thanks to the wonderful data that I actually get through the system at Zumo, we've got a title, a play count, total time watched, asset duration, and average playthrough rate of each trailer, an asset that runs through the system. And what's very interesting is the average playthrough rate seems to be closely syncing up to the box office tallies every week. So you find out now that I've got a smorgasbord of trailers and people clicking to find out what's of interest to them. And it sort of leaves you a trail of what is really interesting to people and what is not so interesting. And then you take a look at that and you map that against box office totals, and you come up with something that's very interesting and perhaps very valuable to the 6 Hollywood studios.
Interesting. We had 2 questions out there, I think. One here.
So my question, it's Scott from Equifax. My question is back to the trenders. You talked about earlier about that you've churned out. If you could kind of elaborate on the reasonings why you churned. Was it a content issue? Was it a binge issue? Was it a raising in subscription cost issue? Was it a awful ads multiple times positioning on a delivery platform? If you could elaborate a little bit further on that, that would be great.
I'll start.
Go ahead, Sophie.
For me, it was breaking up with Hulu. Because I was watching more on Netflix and I couldn't justify spending another subscription cost on Hulu. So that was my reasoning, was
So
just not wanting to spend more.
You made a conscious decision that the Netflix content was better for what you wanted than Hulu's.
Correct.
Okay, cool.
For me, it was a content issue. And also, there was a speaker before that said last week during the Raptors game, there was a blackout. If that happened to me and I was a consumer, I would not go back to that service again, for sure.
I've dipped in and out of services based on what content I was most interested at the time. I also couldn't justify paying for multiple subscription services at the same time. So just at any given moment, there is usually one that I'm watching more of.
Good. We had one question right up here. Carissa.
I was just curious.
Let's get the mic over there. We are recording this for folks remote. Hello, remote people.
Sorry.
Welcome to our virtual world. We're trying to take care of you.
Deb Schoenfeld from BBC Studios. I'm just curious. You said you don't want to be connected on social media, or in the middle, you want 50-50. How do you want to be spoken to then?
I guess I am not really concerned about being spoken to at all. I think yeah. I want to find my own stuff, I think.
I still read the New York Times, so I still read reviews and get introductions to things from something like from the print media still.
Do you read that on paper? You like use paper? Are you sure you're not like you plant here? I don't know.
So I guess I'm the lazy one here, and I want you to give me what I want, as opposed to them that want to go out and search for it themselves. That's my answer to you, is I want these subscription services or the social media networks that I'm connected on to serve me what I want. I want them to know me and cut the time out of my life to tell me what I want to watch in that moment. So I'm stubborn, I guess you could say. Stubborn and lazy.
I would like to thank all of these fantastic panelists, speakers. I know I have at least another 20 questions that I wrote down, and I was cherry picking, but you probably have dozens of questions of your own, so feel free to talk, right? This is all about the networking too, so please, we encourage it. Okay, thanks.